special edition EDTalks here because my friend Mike Kelly. Mike, welcome to EDTalks.
Thanks, Ed. I'm glad to be here.
This is so much fun because, Mike, you and I go way, way back. So I'm going to guess, we didn't talk about it earlier, but I'm going to guess 2001, 2002?
Yeah, it was like 2001, I believe. That's
Yeah,
right.
it's crazy. We called ourselves the whiz kids because we were these young guys. We happened to be mostly guys. We did add we got smart. We added some females right after a couple of guys. So we had a well-rounded, diverse team. But we called ourselves the whiz kids because we were all this young people, and a couple of us had this military background, much like the whiz kids from the post-World War II, sort of came out of World War II, and they remade the auto industry into something spectacular. And before it went back down, of course, but they were part of the spectacular part. And they really were novices to auto industry. We were novices really to healthcare IT in terms of, longevity and things like that. And we were suddenly the leaders of this giant organization, University Hospital Health System out of Cleveland, like this academic medical center, research, education, $3-4 billion revenue. And it was Mike Kelly and Ed Marx and a few other people. Those were crazy times, huh?
Yeah, I look back on those times with great fondness. I actually came into the University Hospitals, if you remember. I was consulting and I was looking at a new revenue cycle solution for the enterprise.
Yes.
And you and our collective boss, Kevin Roberts, asked me if I'd like to come on board.
Yeah. Yeah, we were very fortunate. I think much credit to our success was not only the other members of our team, the whiz kids, including clinical people, by the way, but the CFO backed us, Kevin Roberts, the CEO, Tom Zenti, backed us. And I think we won the favor of a lot of the administrative leadership. Although they looked at us at first like, who are these kids? They gave us a lot of grace and support.
I did. I remember a phrase that you used: relationships forgive a multitude of sin.
Yeah.
So go out there, build strong, meaningful relationships with people. Let them know that you're there to help. Get 1, 2, maybe 3 things that you could fix that would improve their life, and you will have friends in the industry.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right on. And what's funny also is you and I have relationships with all those people still today. So you're very close with Ron Dzinski, who was the chief nurse officer, and then became COO.
He was.
Now he's a board member of Metro Health System, also in Cleveland. And then Kevin Roberts, both of us are still very tight with. He went on to be CFO of other organizations like Geisinger and BJC. And then Tom Zenti, who retired a couple years ago. And I serve on the board of Summa Health with Ori Jacobs and Randy Langendorfer. And then who else do we still keep in touch with? Oh, she's since retired, but Angie Morano, who is sort of like the COO of the academic component. And of course, Liz Novak, who was, senior finance person who eventually came into IT as well. And we still have relationships with all those, and CIOs today, right? The CIO, he came back. He went to follow me over to Texas, came back, is a CIO back at where he was part of the Whiz Kids. And there's another person. We could go on and on. That was just an incredible time for, I think, all of us. It really taught me a lot about leadership. But you went on from CIO, you took over after I left and became a CEO now of hospital. So tell me about that transition. How did that happen?
Yeah, well, it actually happened in university hospitals. It was 2007, and you were moving on. If you remember, you were heading down to Texas, and I was sitting in my office, and it was dark out. So I know it was around 6 p.m. in the winter, and I wrote a mission statement. And my mission statement said, I want to be a CEO of a health provider organization or a supplier into a health provider organization. Just wrote it on paper, and I've really lived my life that way. So when I left University Hospitals in 2008, I came to BJC for family issues. I made sure that when I was interviewing, that everybody I interviewed knew that, yes, I'm coming here as an IT leader, but I really want to get closer to our core business and help lead clinical operations and lead hospitals to take the very best care of patients that we could.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you did. So you became like a COO, and more recently, you've been engaged in some CEO roles at major health systems.
Yeah, I did some interim work at SSM Healthcare in St. Louis at Lake St. Louis Hospital, which is an amazing facility. Really enjoyed that time. And then I've done some work through Korn Ferry's Interim Leadership Services in Northeast Pennsylvania, trying to help a couple hospitals there that were preparing for a purchase.
It's very cool. So let's talk about leadership, because obviously, Mike, you're blessed with leadership. You've been a leader in multiple areas, not just healthcare tech and healthcare, chief executive officer, but I think some of this probably came from your time as a military officer. So can you talk about leadership? Like, what did you learn that helped shape you as a leader from your time in the Army, and what did you do?
Yeah, so I joined the Army because I'm a patriot, but I joined the Army to help me with college. So I went through ROTC at Bowling Green State University and was blessed enough to be given the opportunity to join Army Aviation. So I went right in as a pilot. Didn't know how to, I'd really never been around an aircraft, and now I'm charged with flying these multi-million-dollar aircraft. And I will tell you, I had a flight class of about 35 folks, and about a third of them were already licensed pilots. So I'm coming in as a newbie and actually was able to be selected as the top of the class in my flight class. But what I learned very quickly is leadership to me is about influence. It's our ability to influence people. We don't lead things, we lead people to meet organizational goals and objectives. And regardless of your age, I like to say age doesn't come, maturity doesn't come necessarily with age. It comes with the acceptance of responsibility. So regardless of where you are in your life as far as your age goes, if you're willing to take on the responsibility, set a vision for folks, you can influence them to meet organizational goals and objectives.
Yeah, I love that. Aviation, for those who are not familiar with how the Army works, at least when I was also an officer, I was an engineer officer, and I was told that that was the second hardest. I think there's maybe 15 disciplines in the Army that you could go into, like infantry and armed cavalry, tanks and armor. And engineering was the second toughest to get into. Aviation is the toughest to get into because there's so many people that want to get in there. Did you actually have an engineering degree, or how do you think you got into that school?
Well, I think, God probably shined down on me a little bit, but I had a technical degree. So they do like technical degrees in aviation. And the year I was selected, there was like 340 other folks that got selected into aviation. So it is a pretty small group, but I remember being in flight school saying, I cannot believe they're paying me to do this. And then 2 years later, being in Somalia, getting shot at, saying, they are not paying me enough to do this.
Yeah, I know. I was recently watching the most recent documentary on Black Hawk Down, and I thought a lot about you because I know you were there flying missions right before that incident happened. And then I actually got to fly with you one time. Do you recollect when you took me flying?
I do. One of the reasons that I left active service was I got married, started having a family, and being an Army aviator and being a husband and a father aren't necessarily conducive to one another. So I joined the Ohio National Guard. And guess what? I got deployed again. So I got deployed to Kosovo, and it was over the holidays. And the National Guard had a program that would allow your boss to come visit you literally in Kosovo. So I asked you and Kevin Roberts to come see me in Kosovo right before Christmas. And you both did. And it was a wonderful time together.
Yeah, no, and I loved flying with you on the night light out mission, or whatever we call it, flying by terrain. I did not throw up. I had a wonderful time though. That was such a blast. So we talked about leadership from the perspective of like what you learned as a young aviator, and you talked about leadership as influence, and that maturity is not a factor of age, but comes with the acceptance of responsibility. What have you learned since that time? Those are obviously two key learnings that carry on throughout your career. But anything else you want to add? Like how do you, when you, as an example, because some people are new leaders or they're about to take a new role. So Mike, you've done this a couple times now. When you come into a new hospital and you're like the CEO, what are some of the first things that you do and that you'd recommend for others to do when they take on a new role?
I think, first of all, the book, The First 90 Days, is a great book. For anybody taking on a new role, it stands the test of time. So highly recommend that. And you can, with AI now, you can just get a summary of it in just 20 seconds. I think you do a lot of listening, a lot of observing. We've all heard the saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So you really do have to build meaningful relationships with the people that you are charged with serving. I look at an organizational chart and I flip it upside down. The leader is literally at the bottom, and they're there to support and make sure that everyone that is on their team has the tools, resources, and support to do their job. So that's if I had to put it in a nutshell, it's caring about people in a way that allows you to influence them to meet organizational goals and objectives. I know I've said that a couple times, but that's really what it is.
Yeah. No, I listen to you, Mike, and I just miss our time serving together. You're a great leader. I always tell people, like they always ask, we had this incredible 8-year run at University Hospitals, which launched many other careers such as your own and Robert Early, who I was referring to earlier, and some of our other colleagues have done rather well for themselves as well and become CIOs. And I just think about what we learned and how we were supported, and just listening to you, I just kind of, I have good memories, and you're a fantastic leader. So whatever organization, Mike, you're with, they're going to be blessed to have a leader like you as part of their team.